What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in again for another edition, a shortened edition of the Rambling Men's podcast. Tomorrow we're going to record our regular show. We'll go over the sports highlights of the week. But today, just wanted to do something fun and really jump into our way too early 2018 NFL predictions. I'm coming at you from my bathroom today because my girlfriend's in the room and she's watching TV and stuff, and I didn't want to bother her, so excuse the towel rack and everything. But obviously, want to note that these predictions are subject to change following the draft, free agency, training camp, things like that. But really thought it would be cool to give some predictions based off the current roster. Wanted to dive right in. We'll start with the AFC just because I feel like that's definitely the easier of the two conferences to sort of predict, at least as of right now. So let's start with the easiest one, obviously, the AFC East. Who do you predict wins the division in 2018, Shane?
Come on, man. This is a no-brainer. It's the New England Patriots.
That's why I started it, yeah.
Now, you have records, correct?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so what's your record for New England?
12-4.
Really? Did you look at the schedule?
No.
See, I did, and I really found it hard to not give them 14. I gave 13 wins, but I really thought this is going to be tough to not give them 14 because I have some notes. They only have 7 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks on their schedule next year. And tough road games, but Miami, that's a team that shouldn't be that great, but always gives them problems. Jacksonville should be competitive. Tennessee might be competitive. Who knows with the new coach? Pittsburgh's going to be really good, and Detroit should be pretty good. So those are really just the toughest road games they have. But I want to hear what you have to say.
I think they take a little step back, to be honest with you. I mean, I still think Brady will be a top quarterback next year, obviously, but he's going to decline a little bit. He's not going to maintain this. I mean, he's going to be 42 years old. To think that I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff like some people do, but he's going down a hill. It's inevitable. You start going down that hill when you're like 38.
He actually is, and I don't think people realize it. In the last 4 games of the year, the last few years, his numbers aren't very good.
Absolutely. It's going to be hard for him to go into the playoffs without a bye and everything. Seriously. But Buffalo has no cute quarterback. They're streaky. Miami can't decide if they're good or bad. They literally go from game to game being really good, really bad, and Jets are pretty much a debacle, so no brainer. So won't go too far into that. My next explanation for the AFC North is actually even shorter than that one. But who do you predict wins the AFC North this year, Shane?
Again, I think it's a no-brainer. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, what record do you have?
I have 11-5 actually.
13-3.
Really? They have 9 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks on their schedule.
You don't know who's going to get injured. You don't know any of that. I try not to read off of those current rosters. I just try to go off what I know about their roster right now. And there's
a few tough road games. Baltimore, Denver's always a tough place to play. Oakland, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay. Who knows? That's a team that doesn't really travel well. So that's why I really think they might struggle on the road.
My explanation for the 13-3 was just first of all, weak division. Best offense by a mile in the division, and their defense isn't that much worse than Baltimore's. Baltimore is the cream of the crop of that division, but they're not too far behind. Honestly, if they can just tighten up the screws, I'm going to pick the Steelers to win the Super Bowl in 2018. When you have Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, you're going to win a lot of games just based off of talent. I think they can win 11 games on talent alone, but if they really, if they pair that talent with some discipline and really pay attention to detail like some of these other teams in the league, I really do think they can win 14 games next year. But I got them at 13.
Yeah, I guess that's not ridiculous to say. I do think Baltimore will be a little bit better, but Cleveland's not very good, and Cincinnati I don't expect to be much better. So I do understand some of your reasoning.
So it's interesting. AFC West. Who do you got? I think we're going to have the same.
You really think we're going to have the same?
I do.
I actually think we might too. Because Oakland was a huge disappointment last year. I'm going to do a little build-up.
Okay.
Oakland was a huge disappointment. New head coach John Gruden. Don't really know what we're going to expect from them. Kansas City. Again, I don't know what we're going to expect from them. I expect Kansas City to be pretty darn good, but new quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, essentially a rookie. Who knows how he's going to perform? So I'm not going to go with Denver, so that leaves one team, and I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers next year.
Same.
I figured.
Same. I honestly had a really tough time picking it. I think all the teams have a pretty decent shot at the division. I wouldn't be shocked if literally any of the 4 won.
Yeah.
Denver has a shot if they get Cousins, but I heard that they can be losing both of their wide receivers, and I don't see Cousins being a world burner in Denver, even if that is the case and he goes there. And if they don't get Cousins, forget it. They're not going to win the division.
Yeah.
Raiders are the team I had the most trouble with because it's like, are they going to be that 2016 team that was great? Are they going to be the 2017 team that was pretty mediocre? I think Gruden can bring Carr further along. I think Carr will have a bounce back year. If the Raiders have a good draft, I can easily see them winning this division. I really do.
They need a lot of help defensively, and the Chargers, they finished last year 9-3 after an 0-4 start, and in my opinion, a very underrated roster. Very good in the trenches defensively. So and Phillip Rivers at quarterback. This team could make a lot of noise in the playoffs.
They have the best quarterback.
Yep.
They play in the best weather. They have a solid running back.
Yep.
Great underrated wide receiver. Pretty good tight end.
Two pretty good tight ends. Antonio Gates, even though he's old, and Hunter Henry.
I was thinking of Hunter Henry. I forgot about that. Have a great pass rushing duo in Ingram and Bosa. They need some D tackle help because they're a little weak in the run stopping department. But great pair of corners too. They probably have the best corner tandem in the whole freaking league, if we're being honest. Besides them down there in Jacksonville, Brent Hayward. So yeah, I think if they can just not go 0-4 to start, I think they can win a lot of games. I have them winning 10 games, 10-6.
I have the same 10-6.
Okay. AFC South. I'm curious. You want me to go first?
Yeah, by all means.
If Luck is healthy and I find out that he's 100%, I'm going to pick the Colts. I'm going to be honest with you.
I seem to do that every year.
Since I don't know that, I'm not, because that roster is terrible. But he would be probably, in my opinion, a lot of people don't like Andrew Luck. I think he's great. I think he'd be the best player in that division, and he would do something similar to what Aaron Rodgers does in the NFC North. And even though that he doesn't have the greatest roster, he still wins a division almost every year because he's the best player. So, but the Texans are overrated in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people putting them pretty high. If you expect Watson to come in and just be like a 30 TD guy next year just because he had a hot start last season, I feel like you're mistaken, and I know a lot of people are banking on that. First of all, let me say for the record, I think Deshaun Watson is awesome. I think he's so good at football and everything like that. But second ACL tear, he's probably around 215 pounds. He's built a lot like RG3, to be honest with you. He's gonna have a hard time staying healthy. They don't have a great running game. You don't even know their best player hasn't played a snap in a year. If Clowney continues to ascend and everything like that, and Watson is as good as advertised, they could easily win that division. Titans are going to take a big step back this year.
I think so too. That was one team I thought could take over that division, but I'm not sold on Mike Vrabel as a head coach. I do like who they hired as the offensive coordinator, but who knows if that's going to work out. And I think the rest of the division is just getting tougher.
I mean, exactly. I already don't think that they were, as good as their record, and they replaced honestly, frankly, a pretty bad head coach with a pretty mediocre one at best. I don't think Mike Vrabel's going to hit a home run. I don't think defensive coaches in general hit home runs, very often in this day and age in the NFL. Like, especially if you have a young quarterback, you want to bring in an offensive-minded coach. You need to score points. All the rules are tweaked that way. But like I said, that leaves the Jaguars. I got the Jags going 11-5. Expect them to be active in free agency again. If Blake Bortles can just not screw it up, he can give you like a 25 TD season. I think they'll be pretty damn good. And Fournette is going to be a beast next year. He's got adjusted to the NFL. He was already a beast. He's going to be nice. They need to shore up that O-line a little bit, but they can. The Jags have a good draft. They can be in the NFL.
And that's what they've done very well the last few years is draft very well. But you're not going to like who I have.
I saw the face you made when I said it. So hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going with Houston.
Texans. Yeah, you made a face when I talked about it.
Yeah, I gave it away. It's nothing against Jacksonville. I just think that this team – I expect a lot of teams to be like this, but they strike me as a Dallas Cowboy team from 2016 going into 2017. Everybody had a lot of hype surrounding them. I was one of the few people that just said, I think this team overperformed. That in 2016, I don't see that happening again, and that's the case with Jacksonville. I think they overperformed in 2016. Or 2017. People are going to have their number for 2018. The schedule gets tougher, the division gets tougher. So I'm going with Houston. Outside of Andrew Luck, what's that?
They got the Eagles in London.
Jacksonville does, yes.
Yeah, that's sick.
But Houston, outside of Andrew Luck, honestly, I think Deshaun Watson's the best quarterback in that division. And I hope he's healthy because I really think this team could make some noise in the postseason. They get a healthy Deshaun Watson, healthy J.J. Watt, a fourth-place schedule. I like Bill O'Brien as a head coach. I think he can develop some players. But they don't have a great draft coming up. They don't have a first or second-round pick. But the bright side is they have their franchise quarterback, and they have probably the best defensive player in the NFL. The schedule's kind of favorable. Only 8 Pro Bowl quarterbacks are on the schedule. A few tough road games, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and I'll say Tennessee, New England, Philly, and Washington. That is pretty tough, but who knows with a quarterback like Watson how many games you can win.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What about your 5th seed?
I didn't pick the Kansas City Chiefs last year to make the playoffs, and they burned me, so I can't pass on them again. I'm going with Kansas City. Terrific roster. Andy Reid's a great head coach. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a step back from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes, but I do think he's going to be pretty darn good. But I have the Chiefs as the 5th seed at 10-6.
I have the Raiders at 10-6.
Really?
Very, very top-heavy roster, in my opinion. They really do. They got they're kind of like the Cowboys in that sense. Cowboys have a really top-heavy roster. It makes you think they're a really good team, but then a couple players get hurt. You see how paper-thin their roster really is. That's the Raiders, but they got probably the best defensive player in the league when J.J. Watt's hurt. They got a pretty good young quarterback.
I don't know where they stand in cap space. It can't be great. They've already signed Derek Carr and I think Khalil Mack to long-term deals. So they're really going to have to hit home runs in the draft. They're drafted well. I expect them to be fine, but getting a good defense and getting Khalil Mack back to his old self is going to be huge.
Agreed. What about your 6th seed?
We might have the same here. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
They just missed the playoffs last year at 9-7. Very well coached team in a fairly weak division outside of Pittsburgh. They could easily split with Pittsburgh. I don't think they will. I don't think they have enough firepower offensively. I just think they'll get it done somehow. For right now, at least, it'll be different once the free agency and the draft goes on.
I mean, they were a bad play away from making the playoffs this year, and they were completely decimated with injuries. Mm-hmm. Not a big fan of Flacco or anything like that, but if they can just stay a little bit healthier than they did, I definitely think they can win 9 or 10 games. So here's my seeding.
9 games will get you in the playoffs in the AFC.
Exactly. So here's my seeding. Number 1 seed is the Steelers. Number 2 seed is the Patriots. 3 is the Jaguars. 4 is the Chargers. 5 is the Raiders. 6 is the Ravens.
Mine goes Patriots. The 1 seed, I should say, is the New England Patriots. The 2 seed, Pittsburgh Steelers. The 3 seed, I believe, I looked at the tiebreakers, and I believe it's the Los Angeles Chargers when I went through the tiebreakers and what I had the schedule for the Chargers. Then the Houston Texans, followed with the Kansas City Chiefs as the 5 seed, and Baltimore Ravens as the 6 seed. So that's the AFC.
So let's move on to the much tougher division here. Much more exciting NFC, in my opinion. Not as top-heavy, much more well-rounded, but I'm curious to see, where you're going to go with a lot of this. I don't know if we're going to have a lot of the same picks here besides one.
We'll have to. We definitely will. I know that. We talked about this before we started today. I said we had 6 new. I had 6 new playoff teams. You said you had 5. So I am curious to see who's that one team, and I think I know who it is. You have back in the playoffs, but so you said NFC West. This is tough. This division has gotten so much better overnight. I'm so used to just saying like the Seattle Seahawks are the default division champion, but now the Rams are better. The 49ers with Garoppolo are a whole lot better. However, I don't think the 49ers are going to be quite that good. I think we might be giving them a little bit too much credit this offseason. And then the Rams, this is the other team I think could be like the 2016 Dallas Cowboys going into a new year. Yeah, they're very talented, but they have a few key free agents: Trumaine Johnson, LaMarcus Joyner, who's the other one? Sammy Watkins. They got to re-sign. First place schedule. Now they have a target on their back. And I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done. So I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
You don't.
What's your record?
10-6. Their schedule isn't that bad, but 10-6. I have no idea how they're going to do on the offensive line.
I got the San Francisco 49ers at 11-5.
11-5.
I'll explain to you why.
Okay, yes, please.
Garoppolo is every bit as good as Goff. Probably better, if we're being honest.
I think he's better.
I think he's not as good as Wilson, but I don't think he's that much worse than Wilson. Wilson's a little bit more mobile, but the Rams are going to take a step back.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think they're going to be bad by any stretch of imagination, but
I had them at 9-7.
A lot of things bounced their way this year, and they benefited from a very favorable schedule, last place schedule, like the Eagles did. So Seahawks had two Hall of Fame talents coming off of potentially career-ending injuries. They literally, their locker room's a mess. They literally have the worst offensive line in the entire National Football League. Honestly, if they didn't have Wilson, they'd probably only win 4 or 5 games. Arizona, old offensive line, old wide receivers, no quarterback, simply, the basement team. So it leaves the Niners. Shanahan, with a year under his belt with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is, could be a top 10 quarterback, no doubt. And that front seven is really good, but they're young. Eventually, they're gonna be some grown ass men, and they're gonna be a force to be reckoned with. So I got them winning next year, and probably the next couple of years after that, it's gonna be a foot race between them and the Rams because the Seahawks are dying.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why I just can't pick the 49ers right now to win that division. I'm going to go with the veteran team and with the better head coach with the Seattle.
Yeah, draft's going to make a big difference too, obviously. But so NFC South, I'm curious. I kind of just went out on a limb here, to be honest with you.
You go ahead, man. I want to hear it.
Okay, so I won't tell you my pick at first, but I feel the Saints overperformed a little this year. I do think, Drew Brees is going to be Drew Brees, but I don't think Kamara and Ingram are going to be as good as they were this year. I don't see that defense playing as well as they did this year. Honestly, I could be wrong. This division is going to be more subject to change because of the draft than any other division in the entire league, in my opinion. Whoever has the best draft, I honestly think is going to win this division besides the Bucs. I think it's a 3-person race. I do have the Panthers winning at 11-5. Great roster. They definitely need to upgrade at wide receiver. Hopefully they do something in free agency. But very solid overall on both sides of the ball. I do think the Falcons could have a pretty big bounce back year. Julio mostly. Julio had a lot of yards this year, not a lot of touchdowns. We'll see. But I have the Panthers. What about you?
I think the Falcons are the biggest threat to New Orleans to defend that division title. Carolina, they have a great roster, but I just don't see, unless Cam Newton makes some serious strides, I don't think they're going to be able to win 11 games. I think they were 11-5 last year with the way he was playing. I think he had 9 games with a passer rating below 80. If he continues to play that way, Carolina will not continue to win 11 games a year. Atlanta, like I said, I think could. They got a lot of talent on defense. They drafted very well. But I am going to say New Orleans wins that division again right now. Just because it is a very tough division. But I think those talented rookies that the Saints selected last year are going to be even bigger the second year. Ryan Ramczyk, Marshawn Lattimore, who was the other one? Alvin Kamara, Marcus Williams. They have another year of experience. I think they're going to be a lot better. Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Sean Payton, great coach. It is a tough schedule, though. They play 11 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks, but not too many tough road games. Atlanta, Carolina, Dallas, Minnesota, Baltimore. That's just 5 out of 8. Not terrible.
Okay. So, moving on to the NFC East, I want to hear yours first. What do you got?
Come on, man. Philadelphia. Go Birds. But seriously, I'm usually very wary of picking teams who made the Super Bowl the previous year to make it the next year. Generally, I wanted to look this up, but I haven't. I don't have the number with me. But I can't remember the last few years. At least one team who made the Super Bowl missed the playoffs the next year. With the exception of this year, I believe it was New England, Atlanta. Yeah, they both made it. But the previous year, it was Denver and Carolina. I think they both missed the playoffs. The year before that, it was New England, Seattle. Is that right? But anyway, no, I have to go with Philly. I'd say one of the top 5 most talented rosters in the NFL, and I just don't see an immediate threat in the NFC East right now. Unlike New Orleans does have some competition. Atlanta could easily win that division. If Cam Newton plays well, Carolina could easily win that division. Philly, I think a lot has to go right for Dallas to challenge Philadelphia. I think a lot has to go right for the Giants to challenge Philadelphia. And I think a lot has to go right for Washington to challenge Philadelphia. I just don't see anyone matching the Eagles right now in that division.
What's the record you got?
I feel like this is a little generous, but I have 12-4.
That's what I gave them too, and that could be generous because they do have a tough schedule. I won't lie, but yeah, Giants still have a pretty good roster, but they're sort of like the Seahawks in the sense that they have a terrible offensive line, and it's like you can have all the skilled players in the world, and it's not going to do you any good.
New head coach too, and a quarterback that's not nearly as good as Russell Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. You can't score efficiently. Defense is good, but I think it's declining. I think they had their best year in 2016, even though they're still a pretty good defense. Old quarterback, no running back. Giants will be around 500 this year because they're way better than their record suggested last year. But they're still, a good draft. They could, be a decent team.
I believe I told you if they don't do what we think they're going to do in the draft and take like a Saquon Barkley at number 2 and just draft for immediate needs, they could easily jump back in the playoff hunt, be about 8-8.
Exactly. It's what you want to see if they want to do that, though. That's going to be interesting to see which direction they go because you're exactly right. Skins are going to, continue to be the beacon of mediocrity with, Alex Smith there. Not bad, not good. That's exactly what those Skins are going to be. The Cowboys, I do expect to have a little bit of a bounce back here, but they better pray Sean Lee stays healthy because if he doesn't, they might not be a top half of the league team. They're probably around 15 or 16 without Sean Lee. Zeke will be back. Dak will be a little bit better than last year, but he's still not going to be that good. I think the Cowboys are going to finish around 10-6. They're still going to be a pretty good team. I think, probably 8-8 is their basement. I don't see them having like a really bad season or anything like that.
That's a tough team to pick. I didn't put them in here. I really wanted to. I have to see how this offseason goes for them.
At least Philly, and honestly, if it wasn't for the Wentz injury, I might have them at 13-3. Rosters loaded. Listen, offensive line elite, running backs loaded, not elite but loaded. Tight end all pro. Receivers are decent. Quarterback, regardless if it's Nick Foles or Carson, are pretty good, and it's teetering on elite when Carson's in the lineup, in my opinion. Defensive line, elite. Linebackers, decent, but pretty fast. Safeties, very good. And the biggest problem over the past few years has been, that quarterback position. And honestly, that could be a strength next year, and people don't realize that who don't follow the team as closely as I do. We have 4 quarterbacks under the age of 25 through contract for the next couple of years, and they all have at least a decent amount of promise. We have Sidney Jones, who is apparently a top 10 talent if he can come back and play well.
We never even got to see him play.
He played the last game of the season for 2 quarters. Had 2 tackles. Ronald Darby, also young. Jalen Mills, also young. And Rasul Douglas. Those are all. Neither of them.
Who's the Robinson guy? He wasn't terrible.
He's going to be gone. He was one of the best slot corners in the league, but we signed him to a 1-year league minimum contract. He had a great year. He's going to go make his money. But that quarterback group is at least middle of the pack in the NFL when paired with that D line.
Yeah.
Because the quarterback's job is a lot easier when you got a great D line. Special teams loaded. Darren Sproles is going to be back next year. We will have our return man back. He is not retiring. Coaching staff is still, pretty good. Very good personnel department as well. Eagles have the best combination of roster and coaching in that whole division. And even if Wentz is out, I still think they have a chance. I think they would have a chance at winning that division with Nick Foles. I don't know if they would, but I do think that they could win 9 or 10 games with Nick Foles.
That's another thing to watch this offseason is if whether or not they're going to trade him.
Yeah, I do. So if Wentz can return to form at all, I honestly think they have a good chance at repeating. And I wouldn't just say that. I know that's almost next to impossible. I knew for a fact that Atlanta wasn't going to be back there this year. I just didn't. I thought they were a streaky team last year. I saw them lose to teams they shouldn't lose to. That was one thing I could hand to Philly the entire year. They never really lost a game that they shouldn't have lost. You know what I mean? They never lost a game last second. They never lost to a really bad team. Every time they lost, it was to a pretty decent ball club, all away. Both of the bad losses were away. The last loss to Dallas doesn't count. In Seattle and in Kansas City, that might be the two toughest places to play. So that tells you a lot about a team and a roster, in my opinion. But I saved the best for last for you. I'll take it away first. I do think the Packers win. The Vikings are going to take a step back on offense. I honestly think they have a pretty mediocre offensive personnel. I think they really overperformed this year. Lions are really good. I think the Lions would have a chance, but they're just inconsistent as shit. I don't really like this pick. I hate to say that because I do think Green Bay might have the worst roster in that entire division, but
I think easily they do.
But I do think they have the best player by a mile at the most important position, and that'll give you 10 wins on a bad day, and 12 on a good day. So,
yeah.
I do think Green Bay is going to take it week 17 though. I bet you they play Vikings week 17 and they'll win and they'll go.
Probably. I think mine's a no-brainer, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. A good way to judge quarterbacks in this league is whether or not they are trailers or trucks, I believe is the analogy. Trucks means that the quarterback is carrying a team. Trailer means the team's carrying the quarterback.
Along for the pod.
Yeah. And on it, obviously, I think there are easily 2 trucks in this league. I think you could argue 2 more, but one of them is without a doubt Aaron Rodgers. And that's who I have winning this division. Green Bay, I have going 11-5. That might, I don't know. If with a healthy Aaron Rodgers and a new competent defensive coordinator, I just can't see 10 wins. I feel like it's going to be more than 10, but injuries, obviously, it could be 10 wins. But it's a third-place schedule. Only 8 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks on the schedule. There are some tough road games: Minnesota, Detroit, LA Rams, Seattle, Washington, New England. But when you got Rodgers, you can win all of those games. And while I'm at it, I don't think I said my win totals for the Saints or Seahawks. I had the Seahawks going 10-6 and the Saints going 11-5. But yeah, I have the Packers winning that division at 11-5.
This is where things got a little weird for me. Who's your 5th seed?
The Falcons.
Okay.
I
don't mind that pick.
I just really like their personnel defensively. I think they've drafted very well. They have a great front 7. And Matt Ryan now has a whole offseason to work out the kinks with Steve Sarkisian. That might work out pretty well. As far as I know, they don't have any major free agents, so they should have most players coming back. They do have a tough schedule, though, which is why I have them as a 5th seed. But I have them as the first wild card at 10-6.
I have the Saints in the 5th seed. I could easily see the Panthers and the Saints flip flopping, but great roster, super young. Besides Drew Brees, I think there's going to be a good chance for a sophomore slump for some of their rookies from last year. But yeah, that's really why I didn't pick them to a repeat. But I do have the Saints at 6th or at 5th at the 5th seed. Who do you have for your 6th seed?
This is where
Niners.
What's that?
Niners?
I did go with the Niners. I thought outside the box a little bit. Even though I feel like I did smash them when I was giving my Seattle take. I think I know Colin Cowherd, I listened to his stuff. He was saying how he thinks the 49ers are going to be the Philadelphia Eagles of last year, this year. I'm just not sure I see that happening. They don't have the players on the perimeter that Philadelphia does. They're not nearly. While they're good in the trenches, they're not nearly as good as the trenches as Philadelphia. Garoppolo's really good. He's not nearly as good as Carson Wentz, in my opinion. Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. We don't really know how good he is, but I don't think he's as good as Doug Peterson. So I feel like to say that he might be. We don't know, but I feel like to say that this team's going to automatically go from 6 wins to 13-3 just feels a little ridiculous when I say all those points. But I do think they will be in the playoff hunt, especially if they have a good offseason. But I have them as the second wild card team at 10-6.
I went with the Rams, so I don't have the Seahawks making the playoffs.
Really?
Yeah, 10-6. Still have a great roster. Like I said, I think they'll take a step back because they won't get all those lucky bounces this year. Not lucky bounces, but they won't get a bunch of good bounces this year.
I can't see that happening. The Seahawks are too well coached.
Yeah, we'll see. But this is something I wanted to say. It was like a bold statement. I wouldn't even really call it a prediction, but I think if the Bears were in the AFC, I do think the Bears would have made the playoffs. I do think the Bears could win 9 games in the AFC. I think they'll probably win 7 in the NFC.
I think I had them at like 6-10.
They do really important things really well.
Yeah.
That's why I think they have a chance to, if you can get a breakout player on the perimeter or something who can score 8 touchdowns for you his rookie season, you're going to be pretty damn good. But, like I said, they do important things well. If Nagy can really bring Trubisky along, I think this is a really good team. I think they can win, like I said, 8 or 9 games next year. So my seeding goes, got Philly as the 1st seed, Green Bay as the 2nd seed, San Fran as the 3rd, Carolina as the 4th, New Orleans and LA.
I went with Philly at the number 1 seed, followed by New Orleans at the 2 seed, Green Bay at the 3 seed, Seattle at the 4 seed, Atlanta as the 5 seed, and San Francisco as the 6 seed. But now that you said a hot take, I kind of want to make a hot take. Do you have anything else to say while I think about something?
A hot take?
No. Just, do you want to add anything else before I think of something off the top of my head that's too ridiculous?
I've seen when I'm bored at work, sometimes I'll just go check the message boards under an article or something. I see so many people saying that the Eagles should trade Carson Wentz because Nick Foles just won on the Super Bowl. Those weren't the exact same people who were saying Nick Foles was terrible 3 weeks ago, and I'm just dude, there's no Eagles fan would ever say that. And that's saying something because no Eagles fan's ever seen a quarterback win a Super Bowl besides Nick Foles, but they know how special Carson Wentz can be. Carson Wentz can come back to 100% from that ACL surgery, which I think he can. He's 25 years old and it's 2018. I think he can come back from that. He's not a running back or a wide receiver where he needs to cut off that leg all the time. He just needs to be able to step back and throw off of it. It's not even his plant leg. It's his left leg. So he's just driving onto that leg. He doesn't even have to plan on it. That was what happened. And the only reason I know that's a big problem is because when Sam Bradford was coming off that ACL tear when he was the Eagles quarterback, that was his biggest problem. He tore his right ACL, and he could come off the ball, but when he had to do that plant and step up, I don't know if it was mental, physical, or what, but Carson Wentz tore his left ACL. I think he's a pretty durable player considering he played 16, he played almost 30 games in a row before that. And it wasn't a non-contact injury. He got hit. So
I think that's ridiculous to say.
It is ridiculous.
We treat torn. Yeah, back in the day, torn ACLs. Yeah, that was a threat to your career.
Exactly.
Nowadays, it's not. My brother tore. I said it in the podcast last week while you were gone. My brother tore his ACL in college, and yeah, it sucked. But he tore it in May, and then he was cleared at the end of October to play. Now that was in the middle of football season, and that was gearing up for playoffs, and the high school pretty much said, don't worry about it, just, take a back seat while we make a playoff run. But that's almost nothing, and he tore it in December. He's going to be cleared by June. He should be fine.
That's what I'm saying. And the best part about it is we don't have to trade Nick Foles. We can keep Nick Foles. I'm comfortable with Nick Foles starting a whole month into the season, if that's what it takes to get Carson Wentz, back in football shape, nice and healthy, everything like that. I'm excited.
But while you were talking, I thought about a hot take along your lines. Is there a 4th place team that I think could jump into the playoff hunt from last year? And I said it that was my bold pick last year, but I'll say it again this year. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could get it done.
Or the Colts.
That was too obvious. I wanted to go with something else. Obviously, the Colts would be the top pick, but that's way too obvious. I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis Winston has got to really step it up, though, which is why I'm not picking the Bucs to do very well this year, since I haven't seen him be able to step up. But if he can, and Tampa Bay has another good draft, another good offseason, that's a team I could think assert itself into the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, so there it is. Got some predictions in today. I can't say I'm too confident about them. I do think about at least 9 out of 12 of my original predictions will be correct. I'll come back to that at the end of the season.
We will do this after free agency, the draft, the schedules are announced. We'll do this again. Absolutely. And I guarantee you all of our picks, for the most part, all of our picks will be different.
All right. So, feel free to, if you're watching this, tell us why we're wrong or, why you disagree, whatever. But, see you guys later.
Yep. Have a good one.
Later, dude.